right, so let's talk about the study permit route. So a lot of people have been asking questions about study permits, how to through the study route, because some people can already tell that, one, maybe they don't have education, two, they don't have the experience, three, their age, right? So many things are not favorable for them. So they're thinking the study route may be the best way for them. So let's learn more about coming in through the study route.
So study route is one of the greatest ways to come. And with the current immigration system, I'm just going to give you guys an example. An applicant in Canada who graduated from a bachelor's program in Canada has 1 year work experience in Canada, automatically has 70 points more than the same candidate in Nigeria. Why? Getting a Canadian education that is a bachelor's or a master's gets you 30 points added to your express entry. Working in Canada for a year gets you 35 to 40 points. So if you're single, 40 points. If you're married, 35 points. So right there, 70 points if you decide to come in for master's and then work for 1 year. You know that it would significantly increase your options to immigrate to Canada, provided you meet all of the other criteria, like higher ELTS and all of that. So the school route is great, but the thing right now is that even with the school route, you have to be very careful, especially if your long-term goal is permanent residence. You have to be strategic from day one. And it's what I tell my clients when I consult with them. When I look at your profile and you tell me, you know what, I really want to come to study in Canada, but my long-term goal is PR. As strategy changes, I have to look at first what your current express entry score would be. We have to look at the current trends. And then from that, calculate what schooling in Canada would do to your profile. If all you need is a postgraduate diploma of 15 points to exceed the cutoff, then that's what we're going to do. Then you can go that route. But if it's a master's that you're going to need, or a program that is 2 years or more and all of that, so that you can get more points and also get longer stay in terms of work experience, all of that has to come into consideration in that decision process for you. On top of looking at just express entry, you also have to start thinking about which provinces have good immigration pathways for students, so that when I go there, I'm not just relying on just express entry to get me into to become permanent resident. I have other pathways as well. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, this province all have pathways. In fact, all of the Atlantic provinces are great because the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is there. Because if you graduate and get into an employer that is listed on one of the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, they could help you apply for, sponsor you through PR as well, and then you don't even have to go through the process of waiting for express entry draw and being in that competition. So there is a lot of decision that comes in, especially too if you're a matured applicant. If you're like in your 30s, below 30, below 33, 35, you could be more flexible with the places you go to in Canada, depending on how your IELTS and work experience are prior to coming. But if you're upwards in age, you're more mature, you have to be more careful about your choices so that you don't get stranded.
Can my spouse and children follow me to Canada if I got admission and I'm hoping to get a study visa? Can my spouse and children follow me to Canada?
Yes, under the Canadian immigration law, they can accompany you. Your spouse can come either on a visiting visa or on a work permit. Your children can come with you as well. But I'm going to caveat my yes that you would need to prove to the Canadian government that you have really strong ties still in your home country if all of your family is coming with you. So you would need to show other things to prove that you guys are all going to go back home, when you all relocate and come. Because sometimes you have to come with a really solid explanation as to why the whole family has to accompany. I mean, don't ask me, people shouldn't be separated from their family because they want to study in Canada. But honestly, immigration makes us answer all these questions and prove to them that you're not running away, but you are just coming for the purpose of study. Yeah, and then that your family would go back home as well. It's not always easy because before you decide to come with your whole family, the first thing I would say is make sure you have enough money for the whole family. And that enough money is not meeting the minimum criteria, please, because exchange rate, especially with Naira or some currencies, it fluctuates all the time. So you have to make sure that you have more than enough money to show the government that if they came, don't just calculate that. Online they'll tell you additional $3,000 for each dependent coming with you. If your child needs daycare, that child needs $12,000 a year for daycare, depending on the country. Because some places you can pay up to $1,000 for childcare per month. So it significantly increases your cost of coming to Canada. If you have all that money, by all means, everybody apply and prove to the government. But if you don't, you want to increase your chances of getting that study permit approved. Because I do tell my clients, if one of you gets here, you'll be able to bring the rest of the family.
So people are saying, I have a low grade in my BSc. Can I still get into school in Canada with a low grade BSc?
So when you say low grade, I would think that you're saying second class, lower, third class.
Third class, yeah, maybe, yeah.
So with that, yes, you can still get in. So I would say master's program, a lot difficult to get in with anything lower than a second class upper. But it's still possible. Sometimes we've gotten master's admission for our clients with second class lower who have at least up to 10 years of experience. Very limited program choice, but the options are there that we can help you get your admission. Most of the times when you have second class lower, you have to come with solid experience to convince the admission team. And I always tell people too, a good trick is don't be going to University of Toronto. There's a lot of competition there. Exactly. You have to go to where, there are lots of schools in Canada. Find the ones that are not so popular, and these schools are also all really good schools. One of the things about Canada is that it's not like the US where you're ranked. The job you get is based on the college you graduated from and things like that. Canada doesn't really place a lot of emphasis on that. In many employments, many employers don't really place emphasis on that. So the key is going to an accredited Canadian school. So look beyond the popular schools. That's where if you're looking for master's second class lower. If you have third class, master's is out of reach. To be honest, I'm not seeing yet like someone with a third class getting into a master's program, unless you had another degree on top of that, or another master's or something to make up for that. You might be able to fight a case, but it's not very easy. What I find for second class lowers and third class to easily get into schools in Canada is through postgraduate diplomas. So you can get into postgraduate diplomas a lot easy. Third class is still difficult to get into postgraduate diplomas, but we have a few schools that we work with, depending on your program of choice, that we would be able to secure you admission with a third class or a postgraduate diploma program.
So there's lots of questions about proof of funds for express entry and the study route. So I'd like you to just address that.
Okay. So the express entry proof of funds is based on family size. So basically, it's based on family size. An applicant that is a single applicant is looking at about $13,000 Canadian that you need to have, and it goes down the line that way. These funds have to be available in your name, or if you're a married applicant, in your name or your husband's name, for a period of at least 6 months prior to when you submit your application for permanent residency. Most times we've seen clients who come, who have, who receive gift deed at the end. Express entry would accept gift deed. If you have a gift deed and your family member gave you that and it's a gift, not loan or anything like that, then that's fine. You can use that for your application and show prove the relationship and all of that. One thing with the proof of funds is that 1 year later, they'll ask you for it. It will be asked at the border when you're getting into the country. Some of the border officers would ask for your proof of funds. But this money is not money you just show. It's money that the government expects you to have to help you settle when you come into Canada. So that's for express entry. For study in Canada, the proof of funds that you need to study in Canada is basically tuition fee. Whatever the tuition fee of the school you're going to was $10,000. So if your schooling is going to be $20,000, you need plus $10,000. You're looking at 30,000 Canadian dollars for that school program you're coming for. That's the minimum. And I think that's the minimum because you cannot just bring just the minimum. You need to bring more than that. There's flight other things that you're going to be doing before you come. So you need to show more than that money as well. And then if you're coming with family members, that increases as well in terms of the cost. So that's what you need to show.
Fantastic. So someone's saying I have an admission, but I'm yet to get my study visa and school resumes in January. Is it possible to defer that admission if I don't have my study permit by January?
Yes, you just need to contact your school to see if your school has the next earliest start date and see what the rules are. Sometimes, depending on the program of choice, they may not be able to move you into the next semester. They may say you should reapply again. Does that make sense? So it's important to ensure that you actually have, it's important to ensure that you check with your school before you defer and ensure that you can still defer the admission.
If I go from an English-speaking country, do I need IELTS?
For most schools, don't require IELTS for English-speaking countries. What I would advise you to do is check on the school's website. Each of the school's websites would have the list of countries that are exempt from language test requirements and would also list what you need to show.
If I have a master's degree, can I still come to Canada as through a study visa?
A master's degree, yes. I've actually had a couple of clients who have done that. They already had master's degree and they were able to still come. What I would say is that if you already have a master's degree, you have to look for something that you have to look for a very strong program to convince the officer why you want another master's degree.
So for express entry, how do I prove my work experience? What does the government require for me to prove my work experience, my foreign work experience?
So you would need letter of reference from your employer that includes your job description, job title, salary paid, duration of work, your supervisor's name. You're also going to need proof of salary payment. You're also going to need pay slips. You're going to need any benefits and all of that. Anything to prove that you really worked in the company would be required for your proof of work experience from your home country.
Scholarships are, I think that's a direct application to universities to get scholarships and grants, I believe.
Yes, so for scholarships, they do exist, mostly a lot of them at master's level in terms of research type masters, thesis-based masters. You'll find scholarships in those ones, but you have to apply to them. They're very competitive, so you have to have really high grades and really great complementary work experience to be considered for those types of masters, so for those types of funding. Most schools also have entry-level funding as well, the entry-level scholarship as well for undergrads and all of that, but it's not widely available. They do exist. You have to search for it and all of that.
Can I work with a study visa?
Yes, you can for 20 hours per week. And then while you're in school and 40 hours when you're on holiday. Those are the rules.
So there's a question here about, can I use a joint account, or can husband and wife submit both bank statements or a joint bank statement for proof of funds?
Yes, so you could use joint statements or husband and wife for proof of funds. If, for example, most of the funds are in the wife's name and the husband is the primary applicant, then the wife will have to include a letter that the husband does have access to all of that money as well. But if it's a joint account with both your names, it doesn't, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's only if it's all in one person's name, then you need that letter. But you could definitely use joint account.
If you're paid in cash, how do we prove that?
If you're paid in cash, well, there's really no way you can prove that, right? So it's up to the immigration officer if they do believe that work experience. Sometimes they might invite you for an interview if they feel that they're not confident that you may have done the job. So you just have to go and speak to them confidently that you did do the job and talk about the experience that you had. And if you have any other things or any other means to show that you worked there, be it like if you had a performance review done when you were there, ID card from the company, anything else to add to really convince them that you did work there, those would be good.
So for your supporting documents, could they be handwritten or typed? Please type them if you can, right? Because not everyone has handwritings, right? You want to make sure the visa officer can, read and understand what you're doing. So for me, everything was typed. My letter of explanation, which is the LOE, where you explain everything that you're submitting and why you submitted those documents, and explaining, your own unique situation to the visa officer, because that's a human being that's going through your application. So that LOE is a fantastic document that you can use to explain everything. Oh, this is why my name is different on this certificate and that. However, I attach this. Okay, in this company, I was paid cash. However, I have some other things to prove that
it.
This company.
Exactly.
Oh, at this time, 5 years ago, I was working for myself. Here are some documents to prove that I work for myself. So you want to make sure you type it out. It's very detailed, and you section it out. Education, work experience, funding, so that it's easy for the immigration officer to read through. The visa officer is able to actually reject your application based on how he or she feels about your application. So make sure you try your best to make sure your application is smooth, you got your documents done right, and you also submitted the right things. How can I prove that I'm going to return if I'm coming with a study visa?
Well, it's a difficult thing. It's very subjective, and honestly, it's one of the places where the officers tend to have a lot of power and refuse people. But you have to be very articulate about your ties to your home country in your study plan. So talking about in terms of the ties that you have, family that you have behind, assets, employment opportunity, you need to explain to the officer what you have. And sometimes people don't have anything. You just have to tell them that if I could get this education in Canada, these are my job prospects. The Canadian government knows that you will potentially apply for PR. The test, if you're going to go home, is just to prove to the government that if you came and the rules changed and you could no longer convert your stay to permanent, would you live in Canada illegally? So basically, if you don't have ties in Canada, would you live in Canada illegally, or you have a lot of good things going on for you that you just be like, what is this Canada all about? I'm going back home. So those are the things that they're testing for. And that's what the officer will be assessing, which is why family ties are always really strong sometimes, because you won't leave your family behind. If you're suffering in Canada, you can't get work, you just go back home to your family, right? Or if you have assets that you need to sell, or you're in a good field that you know that if you go back home, you get good employment with a Canadian education, those are proof of good ties that you can actually include in your application.
If you and your spouse both have siblings in Canada, you get 30 points together, I guess, if you're applying as a family and they both have siblings in the US, in Canada.
If you have more than one sibling, it's only one sibling, 115 points.
So what if husband has a sister and the wife has a brother in Canada? That's what the person is asking.
You just pick one. Pick one person, because the sibling you have in Canada, you're going to bring documents to prove your relationship with that sibling. So you're going to prove that they're living here, their utility bills, employment, driver's license, you're going to need. So just pick one of them to provide their documents. They only ask for one.
You've been exempted from a visa before. Does it affect my chances of express entry or PMP?
No, except it doesn't affect your chances if you were refused a visa. You would have to explain that, of course, in your application, clearly stated that you've been refused a visa to a country as well. Not stating that you were refused a visa could lead to even further refusals as well, and even being banned, because immigration might just think that you are lying and you don't want to be caught being misrepresenting on your application.
And guys, something I've noticed is that with regards to this application process, remember that it's a human being that is reviewing this thing. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to review documents from an application, trust me, an application that's done well, properly, with as much documents, and well arranged and everything,
yes,
it's way easier. There are people who they had a lot of back and forth with their visa officers, and trust me, it's very frustrating, asking you questions upon questions. If you know that there's something that is, unique about your application, something that's out of the ordinary, something you feel you need to explain. If you have the urge to explain something to your visa officer, explain, yes, right? Because you never know what could be the very little thing that may cause a refusal, or that may make your visa officer start to distrust you.
Yes.
Right? So these people are trained and they've gone through this over and over again. So they also know when it's a scam or when you're lying too. So you want to make sure that, you provide as much information as possible, as much documentation as possible to prove.
And one thing that I would say is immigration is constantly changing. They're constantly updating things. We're trying to keep up with putting out information there on the changes that are happening with permanent residents, different pathways and different opportunities. And I would say that there may be more coming even in the near future here, some tweaks and changes that might end up favoring you. So stay informed, stay in the news if you're thinking of coming. The first basic thing, get your educational credential assessment done, get your IELT written. Sometimes you may need to write that IELTS more than one time. In today's world, it doesn't hurt to explore learning French and writing those French exams. Don't wait and think that the scores are going to drop because they've not been dropping. So do whatever you can to get to the current trends and the cutoffs so that you can have a good chance of coming in as well.